Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm your host, That One Camera Guy, and in this episode we're going to find out if it's still worth it to get the Canon T3i in 2014. The Canon T3i came out in February of 2011, also known as the 600D or the KISS X series. That was a year after the T2i came out. Now I had the Canon T2i and it was a great little starter camera, and it's pretty much what got me into DSLR video and photography. Now the difference between the T2i and the T3i was the added swivel screen on the Canon T3i with a few added video features. But the big question we're going to answer today is it still worth to buy the Canon T3i with all these other options out there? So we're going to answer about 6 different questions to hopefully give you a better idea of whether or not this camera is for you. But to give you the quick summary, if you're looking for a camera at a $400 budget, you cannot go wrong with the Canon T3i with a kit lens. So let's get that out of the way. But if you want to find out more, keep on watching. The first question you got to think about is, what ecosystem do you want to live in? Cameras have an ecosystem. You can't just simply buy lenses in one camera company and use them on a different one. It's not that simple. The two big competitors are Canon and Nikon. There's also Sony, Pentax, Fuji, Olympus, and Panasonic. And there's several other ones out there, but the reality is the two major ones are Canon and Nikon. Now if you're a starting photographer, you're coming from a smartphone or a point-and-shoot camera, my recommendation is to either go with Canon or Nikon. Now I know a lot of folks out there that use other systems and brands, and they might yell at me about it, but I'm going to tell you, as a beginner, Canon or Nikon is the best place to start, period. They have a lot of offerings for their lower entry-level cameras, they have more lenses available for you, and more people have them, so you can troubleshoot problems a lot easier. So that's my recommendation. The one thing to think about with the Canon and Nikon thing is, how do you want to build yourself up as a photographer? If you stick with Canon or Nikon, there is always a way to go forward. You can start from a crop censored camera up until a full frame, and you have a plethora of lenses that are available to you at the upper end of that range. If you decide to go with Sony or the other brands out there, they're still working on their way to create a professional line that has a lot of variety for you. Now, I'm not saying that they're not professional, you can't use them in a professional setting, but what I am going to say is that in a few years you're going to see the divide shrink, meaning that you could probably go with any brand out there and you'd be happy with the results. Question number 2, what kind of photographer are you? Big question. You're coming from a cell phone camera, you're ready to upgrade, you want to start taking some better photos, but do you really want to carry a big camera around your neck? Now, by the way, these are relatively small in comparison to most DSLRs. Or do you want something more portable like this Canon EOS M? It takes the same quality photos, but it comes in a smaller package. You're not going to be able to shoot sports with it, but in many controlled environments and still photography life, this is a great camera to get. So that's something you want to think about while you're making your purchase. I don't know what kind of photographer you are, but if you're thinking about wanting to go beyond it, then my suggestion is go with the DSLR. Question number 3, are you serious about video? And if you're on a budget, again, we're sticking under a $400 price range here. One thing I'm going to tell you right now is that the T3i, if you are very interested in videography in the DSLR system, the Panasonic GH3, GH4, is probably going to be the camera you want to go towards, but that's in a different price range. But if we're sticking with the $400 price range, the Canon T3i is going to give you a lot of bang for your buck. It has a swivel screen, it has manual audio controls, it has a mic jack, and one bonus feature is, if you get the Magic Lantern firmware hack on this guy, you're going to get expanded features. You're going to have third stop controls over your ISO, you're going to be able to monitor audio while you're recording, you're going to have zebras, peaking, and so many more features that you couldn't have gotten straight from Canon. So my contrast to that is the Nikon system. This isn't a D3200, which is what I would recommend other people to get, but my thinking with this would be, if you're not really into cinematography, the D3200 camera may be a better camera to buy. But if you want to do more video type work, the Canon T3i 600D is my recommendation for videographers. How about the image quality? The Canon T3i sensor, Canon's been using the same sensor for over 4 or 5 years now in their APS-C line, and it hasn't really improved in terms of quality, dynamic range. In the Canon T3i, you've got a really old sensor pretty much, and it hasn't changed with the 60D and the T5i. It's very similar to even the 70D, although it has a slightly different sensor. The real question is the image quality. If you are purely into image quality, you want the best pictures, you're going to be a photographer. You're not a videographer, you want to be a photographer. Get yourself a Nikon D3200. The 24 megapixel sensor on that camera is going to produce some really amazing photos and detail out of the camera. And the one thing I will say is that at the end of the day, guys, even though that 24 megapixels seems like a lot, from 18 megapixels on the T3i, it really isn't. The only people that can tell the difference between the quality of the images are pixel peepers and people that take lots of photos with digital SLRs that can tell the difference. But most of your friends, family that don't shoot photos all the time can't tell. My recommendation for you is if you get the T3i, shoot in RAW, process your photos in a program like Lightroom, Aperture, or Photoshop, and really hone in on the processing and the look of your photos, and that's going to make a huge difference. So there's two things that determine the quality of a photo. That is the lens and also the person behind the camera. If you're going to use a kit lens, you're not going to get the best quality out of it. But if you pick up prime lenses and higher quality lenses with your camera, you're going to get sharper images at the end of the day. What is the right price? I've mentioned it already. $400 sub is what you want to go for this camera. If you find it at a higher price, don't get it. If you can't find it for under $400 with the kit lens, don't get it. It's not a bargain. Under $400 price, the T3i is a great starting camera for any budding photographer. And in addition to that, if you're purely photography, also consider the D3200, which is a lot cheaper, but you're getting a lot of features in a small camera for the price. My final verdict about the Canon T3i. At the end of the day, the T3i is an entry-level camera at heart. That's all it is. Keep that in mind. It doesn't have 9 cross-type focus points. It doesn't have an advanced AF system. It doesn't take a bunch of frames per second. It's not going to freeze the action. But I'm going to tell you this. As an entry-level camera, it's great. But you got to pair it with the right lenses. Okay? If you have the kit lens, it's a great starting lens to get a lot of good photos, but you're going to start to realize you can't take pictures in the dark, you can't take pictures in the gym, you can't get pictures of your kids because they're moving too fast, and that's when you gotta get the better lenses. Secondly, you gotta learn to control your camera, you gotta learn the manual mode, you gotta learn all the settings. There's no point in getting an upper end camera like a 5D, a D800 or something of that nature if you don't know how to use your camera, right? My recommendation is for most starting folks that have never used the camera before, get yourself an entry-level camera, because it's better off to spend a sub $400 price range and find out whether or not photography is for you. Because what's going to happen is some folks are going to say, I want a DSLR, and you find out I hate photography, and you shove the camera inside a closet and it builds dust, and you find out I just want to take photos with my cell phone, right? It's going to happen. So if you end up finding that happening, you didn't waste so much money. You can probably put the camera back up online and recoup a lot of your cost. Now, if you are a budding photographer and you're really excited about photography, maybe you want to consider the 60D or the D5200. But at the end of the day, I still recommend an entry-level camera because you can always save the money in buying better lenses. The better the lens, the better the photos, and you're going to get better results. But you got to remember, it's the person behind the camera that makes the photo, not the camera equipment. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you like the videos on my channel, subscribe. I'll be putting up more videos on a weekly basis. If you have any questions about the Canon T3i or the D3200, post a comment down below. Or if you have any suggestions for my videos to improve them, I always love to hear some feedback. I always love to hear some feedback to help improve the quality of my videos. With that said, guys, I'm your host, That One Camera Guy, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.